Show me that spine.
Show us spine. Where did Timmy take your chocolates?
Where's the Tim Tam he took? Don't hide it from me, Jordan.
Don't hide it from me.
Have you cleaned your room, Jordan?
Exactly. And that would be it.
You best be cleaning it. Welcome, beautiful people, to the Getting Mental podcast, where we explore the wide-ranging factors that shape our lives, from the political to the mental. Today we're getting mental with none other than John Herbert. John began his humble beginnings as a project manager in the film and TV industry, where he moved on to eventually become the operations manager, focusing on acquisition, drafting policies, and implementing systems alongside the executive team. After working in the industry for over 17 years, John decided to take what he had learnt from working so closely with others in the film industry a step further. John left his job and embarked on a journey of deep learning, the outcome of which has led him to become a specialist in characterology, body psychotherapy, and somatic listening. In addition to this, John has also studied comprehensively in transhumanism, psychodynamics, attachment theory, the occult, human design, gene keys, shadow work, and this one I might butcher, but true, sidereal, astrology, and more. John uses these tools and modalities to help his clients in workshops and in one-on-one create lasting change, and is currently writing a book about his methods in creating change, all of which we'll discuss in this episode. John, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome, Luke. I love reading that bio. I could hear you read that all day. Tell me again.
I spent a good little while looking at that, and there was tons of stuff that I missed out on that, including the podcast that you have and other various things, which we'll go through in this episode here. I wanted to start in an interesting spot. I was listening to the Donald Trump episode. Excuse me. Listening to the Donald Trump episode 022, and it was called Donald Trump, How the Body Tells a Story. And in that podcast, you said, the less you empathize with a person, the more you dehumanize yourself. Mm-hmm. Would you like to expand that a bit and just talk about, what that actually means, even in the context of what's happening in the world right now with all the, the diversity of opinions and this person's this and this person's that?
Yeah, sure. So in the context of that, in the peak of the Donald Trump era and that political polarization, what I could see from both sides of the political spectrum was like this dehumanization, where based on someone's political values, there was this person isn't worthy of my time and energy. And then in the context of Donald Trump, like he was seen as this figure of almost like a demon, like he was demonized and dehumanized in that process, like he's less than human. And what I've seen from what I've studied is that when you start to dehumanize the human, like separate, conjoin the human with the action, you lose the humanity in that. So yes, he wasn't a very popular man in some circles, the way he treated people or the way he operates, or he's very self-centered and self-focused, almost to the point of he would be willing to sacrifice somebody else in order to get what he wants, and that kind of energy about him. And then when you only see that public figure, whatever the media portrays or whatever makes it to the surface, you can dehumanize, you lose that humanity. Like he goes home at night and he might cry, or he might really struggle with the weight of the world on his shoulders as a president, when he was president, or feel like really quite depressed and upset around how people were treating him. So in that dynamic, the empathy component in that podcast, like I speak to, like you're understanding someone's childhood, and like really acknowledging like where they've come from. You can create an empathy around who they are today. That doesn't excuse how they behave, because I see there's an accountability that's still required in that conversation. However, to dehumanize the person because of their actions, I don't see it as a way we can move forward as a civilization. Like punishing someone or condemning someone based on what their upbringing was like. It doesn't. I just see it as there's more constructive ways of being able to empathize and unite us as one body, one whole planet.
You see it so often, and it's an everyday human experience. And when you're arguing with someone, when you're in the middle of a contentious conversation where you feel, especially intimately, where you feel so right, you feel like your opinion is bigger and better than the person you're speaking to because you're living in this reality in your own body, you tend to forget that the other person has their own reality going on. So when I heard that part about, the less you empathize with a person, the more you dehumanize yourself. And also to add that as well, you said that the more you ignore the parts of other people, the more you ignore those darker sides of someone else, you're doing that to yourself as well. So when someone's going through this process of being in a fight with their partner or, like with this whole COVID thing and, anti this or pro that, there's so much of this person's this and this person's that. And I think one of the founding philosophies, and you can correct me on this, this is purely conjecture on my part, is in transhumanism, they talk about being able to extend beyond who we are as people and become something bigger and better. Now, just to kind of keep this brief, scientists and people who study human nature, social psychology they call it, will often say that this is just the way we are, and this is just who we are. We have inbuilt biases for survival and etc. Do you agree with that opinion? And if you don't, and you do believe in transhumanism, which you've studied quite extensively, then how does that work if science has said all this stuff in the past about not being able to change?
Now that's perfect. And just briefly, so how I got into transhumanism, I no longer follow that ism now. I came to learn that the body is actually a really important component of life and of existence. And the transhumanist community are just humans looking to extend their life, like you said, just like to extend what it means to be human. The part of us that makes us human, like I really don't feel like science has been able to really encapsulate like what makes us human. So the reductionist way that science looked at it is basically, we're a meat sack, and then there's patterns of behaviour that are almost fixed, that are part of human nature. And then when you remove like the emotional side, like the mental side, you're basically just like a robot, and you can replace it with anything. So that what makes us human, for me, and what I learned moving out of the transhumanist community, was that those childhood upbringings, and like it doesn't matter what your initial upbringing was, or whatever you consider your trauma was, attachment was, there's another path that is created in that, where it's to distill it down to what specific moments made you who you are is almost impossible, because it's in the body chemistry. So like particularly in the voice is a good one. So with the voice, when you go to speak your truth or something that is uncomfortable for you, sometimes you can feel like this clenching around the throat, right? So is your brain making your throat feel a little bit clenched up because you want to speak, or there's something that's in your throat, like somatically or central nervous systemly, that's stopping you from wanting to say whatever it is present for you?
As far as I'm concerned, for this conversation, this part in particular, there's two defining beliefs that you see in the culture, right? And when I say culture, I mean the cultures that I'm a part of, which is modernity, right? The modern parts of society talking about science and how science is the solution to the future, technology. And if you look at social psychology, which is a science like psychology, they talk about the past and how in order to survive as humans and procreate, which was the two founding principles of why we do what we do, the underlying motives, we have inbuilt biases, and these biases, which are shortcuts for thinking, if anyone doesn't know specifically what that is, are there to maintain or to create those two things, procreation and survival, to procreate perhaps. And the other camp, so that's the science of who we are, and the solution to that is that we ought to learn to live with those things. Then the other side is perhaps a more esoteric, spiritual way of looking at things, which is that we are infinity, we are eternity, we are everything, and everything is us. We are quantum physics, for lack of better words. And what this means is that we can extend our hand further than what we can in this body right now. The psychology, which is inside of us, we can extend further. And when I was looking up, transhumanism in preparation for this talk with you, it said something about believing that humans can extend beyond who they are or who we have been defined as we are. And I have my beliefs around that. And I'd probably say that I lean more towards that. This is how we are. This is how we've been developed, and this is how we've evolved. So we ought to learn how to manage those things and mitigate the risk, as opposed to extending our hand out towards something that may not be true. So I guess the question is, if someone were to believe in the science, but then go towards the transhumanism point of view, and I know the ism is an iffy thing right now, let's just call it spirituality, where everything is beyond, then how would someone go ahead and believe in that when there's probably no evidence for that as far as I'm concerned?
I guess it's a philosophy. So I guess, like for me, in the context of I want to say a rigid the scientific way of being, if you can't prove it mathematically or evidence based, then it's either waiting to be discovered or we've already discovered as much as we can. Coming from that world, I kept getting depressed. I kept getting really anxious and upset around that there must be more to this. I need to give my life some more meaning. And in that, moving into the transhumanist realm, into the hardcore transhumanist realm of extending life beyond 120 years, or uploading into a computer, or replacing body parts to be more machinery, augmenting the body with mechanics. That gave me a little bit of purpose. I was like, okay, cool. If I die in this body, I can just be uploaded. I can be digital. I can live forever. Because there was a real fear of death for me. And then bringing in that spiritual sphere of a philosophy around, if I'm a fragment of consciousness experiencing it in this body right now, and then when I die I return to a larger sphere or ball or whatever it is of consciousnness, that gave my life a much more meaning. And then when I started going through the characterology component of things, and that more the ancient gnosis of, we've got samskaras, and there's karmic patterns that play out collectively in order for us to evolve into almost a singularity, consciousness-wise, a self-actualized singularity. The spirituality side of it just made more sense to me, especially when I was, this is a bit esoteric, when I was learning my core energetics stuff and skills, doing past life regressions, or seeing other things that were wait a minute, what the hell is this past life stuff? This feels really real to me. And it could be something that my body needed to create a meaning to integrate it, which is what the mind is for. Okay, I need a reason for this. I can't have this unanswered question. I'm going to give it some meaning. So for me, I use the sphere of philosophy and spirituality to answer some questions which give me more meaning and just a sense of purpose in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's this idea by Richard Dawkins. He talks about the God of the gaps in his book, The God Delusion, right? And what he says is that the things that we don't know about reality, we shouldn't fill them up with esoterical, godlike characteristics, in my own words. And the danger in that is that you leave what could be solved and understood materialistically, scientifically, quote unquote, you leave that to the side because you choose to believe in something that may be inherently biased, And I'm not saying that that's what we do or we don't do, it's just an observation, right? And for me, I guess growing up as, a left-brained person and seeing the world through a particular lens, which was that everything is, kind of black and white in a way, and that something's real or it's not real, there's advantages and disadvantages to that, right? And I think that, and this is me correcting myself perhaps right now, is that there happens to be a balance you need to go by, because a balanced point of view sees all directions. And the direction that you're missing out on is the direction that you need to understand more. And some would even refer to it as a shadow, right? And that goes back to what we were just saying then, which is at the start of this, which was when you choose not to empathize, or when you don't empathize, more accurately perhaps, you lose out on seeing your shadow, because the parts you don't like in other people, you probably don't like in yourself as well. So I think that goes full circle there, right? But just quickly on what you said there about, and you can address that as well if you want to, but characterology, that's something I've never heard of before. I think we spoke about it a couple of times before in the last talk, but I haven't heard about it since. If you don't mind expanding on that as well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. And I loved your review there as well, but the black and white, and then the gaps. And I think both sides of thinking are really important. Like the black and white is like, we need that. We really need that. And then having the option for, you got to, like, without that tension, like you don't create anything new. So it's like, I love that. And I love that competition between like science and spirituality. I think it's important to have. In the context of characterology, so that's it's looking at the body and establishing like behavioral patterns or ways of being purely based on like how someone looks, how someone stands, how someone moves, what their weighting of their body, whether it's like their upper body versus their lower body. It's from Wilhelm Reich, so it's part of the core energetics modality. And it's super fascinating. I was actually having a chat with a mate of mine a few years ago, and he's working in machine learning. And I said, bro, you could actually design an algorithm that you could look at someone's body and give a fair assumption as to what they experienced in childhood based on what their characterology is. And he was super keen. I'm actually keen to catch up with him again after being let out after COVID. So it's the characterology component is how your body designed defenses, physiological defenses to protect itself from ego death. So as a child, like depending on the stages of development, like from 0 to 21, your body will undergo specific musculature changes. And what I've seen in my practice and when I was mentored was that these things, that these ways of being, these defenses are quite accurate. What can I speak to? Masochism is one that always pops up for me. So the masochistic character or the enduring character is someone who self-sabotages a lot. And they tend to carry a lot of self-hatred. And in their body shape, for someone, depending on what ratio, so if you look at it like a bar graph of like 5 things, like 5 specific character traits, there can be different, like a little bit more masochism, they're going to have this type of body shape. If they're a bit more rigid, like they're going to have this shape. If they're a bit more schizoid, they'll have another type of body shape. So within the body shapes, there's ways of being. However, back to the masochism. So masochistic people that have had a masochistic childhood tend to have a little bit plumper. They have more adipose tissue on their body, and the pattern in childhood usually comes from the mother's side. A lot of this stuff is like from the mother's side of the family, where the mother. So it's the mother's relationship with the child, or the female caregiver, whoever is identified as the female caregiver. Not being able to say no to mum, or whenever mum received a no, she was quite controlling towards the child. So what happens is the child bottles up all of this pent up rage, can't get it out. So they end up building this defense around, I'm just going to keep myself away from everyone, which comes in adipose tissue. So a lot of these my clients that are that have more adipose tissue than other, like the rigid or the schizoid or the orality, someone who has orality, they're a bit tubbier, a bit fatter around the gut. So for me, when I do body work, depending on where they're at energetically and where they're ready to feel all their emotions, like I'll have a massage gun and I'll go straight in for their belly and just vibrate their belly, and they can either be like, they start to laugh, or they can get really angry. And in that anger and losing control, they have more freedom in their body. So the more permission you can express whatever's been suppressed, you just feel freer. And your body shape can change based on when you start addressing your childhood wounding.
There's a lot to unpack there. The very first thing that I wanted to just bounce back to quickly, and we can go on to that trail more. You were talking about we have mechanisms or ways of, correct me if I'm wrong, dealing with emotions in the body that you can see on someone's physiology to avoid ego death. Why do humans, and why are we trying to avoid quote unquote ego death? And if you could expand on what ego death actually means as well.
Yeah, great. Great question, Luke. So an ego death in the way of whoever you think you are, like, isn't important or doesn't need to exist anymore. So for a baby who's looking at the mother and the mother doesn't return like a loving gaze, there can be like, it's like, okay, mum's not returning love to me. Okay, I need to survive right now. I need to survive. What am I going to do? I'm going to create some other reason why my mum doesn't want to look at me. And that reason gets trapped in the body chemistry, usually around the neck or the eyes. You can see, sometimes I can look at someone who's had like a high orality, and I can just see that I can't see the vitality in their eyes. There's something that's there that's what's missing for you. What's missing for you?
Yeah, it's like a cloud in the eye. And
yeah,
the mechanism is to protect you. And of course, it's a story to protect your integrity from, right, that makes sense now. I'm just unwinding in my head. So it's in order for you to protect yourself from the idea or the concept that, quote, you're not loved or you're not good enough or X, Y, Z, your body creates mechanisms in between. So ego death can really be to maintain self-esteem in a different way.
Totally. And then spot on. And then some of the older, as you grow up, some of the other defenses that pop up are around puberty. So sexual shame. So sexual shame shows up in the body a particular way as well, where it's like, oh, like whether someone touches you inappropriately, or like your first sexual encounter, you felt a lot of shame or you weren't respected. That shows up in the body as well. Yeah, it's all about either avoiding toxic shame or guilt or obliteration of self. Like, okay, this is who I am. I need to maintain this image of who I am. I'm going to build defenses up around my body, whatever it looks like. Not open my heart to people. Or go into my head to escape, or over talk to people, because when I'm talking to someone, I feel like I'm connected to them. However, I'm talking at them, not to them. There's a litany. There's a whole bunch of different traits that come in through your body defense.
Okay, so it was Wilhelm Reich.
Wilhelm Reich.
Wilhelm,
yeah. And then his work was modified slightly by Alexander Lowen. So Lowen's work is a little bit more grounded. He's more respected when you research him. Wilhelm Reich gets a lot of Wilhelm's work gets thrown out like the baby in the bathwater. He was a little bit of a mad scientist, so he devised technology like the cloud buster. He had like orgone boxes where people could sit inside them and they'd be temporarily healed from certain illnesses. It was in the era of the Wild West of psychology. So there was some of his experiments were a little bit left field. However, in that his characterology stuff is useful and versatile, which Alexander Lowen took on board and devised it a little bit more. He's got a great book called Depression in the Body, and speaks to how he treated people with depression, long-term chronic depression, by massaging and making them do specific body movements. And then Alexander Lowen partnered with John Parakos and created core energetics, which is what I'm trained in. They had more exercises, and with John, he involved more of the heart. So he wanted more of a compassionate, heart-focused, purpose-focused, and also tied in some spirituality as well in that container. So yeah, those three chaps.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm just unpacking it in my mind and just going through some of the stuff you said there, and it seems like I'm just getting, inside your mind and how you're seeing it, just to completely understand the concept. It seems like if trauma or pain, which I think trauma is the stories that we tell ourselves, and the original part of the trauma as well, if that's stored in the body, that means the manifestations that we have physically, physiologically, migraines, arthritis, stuff like that is caused by emotion. Is that accurate?
Yes and no, and this is what I love you said that. I loved you said that, bro, because this is the importance of science. Like, it's about really distilling what's correct for you. Like, I would want someone to diversify how they see their symptoms. Like, sure, address it psychosomatically first, and then go into something that's a little bit more medicinal. Like, maybe you got migraines because of some other reason. Like, I know that clients that have migraines tend to grind their teeth at night because a tight jaw can be caused from early childhood anxiety. So, and you could also have something else going on biologically in your body that's like immutable biology. In the body, you really need a multi-pronged approach. So having science there and having some of these other esoteric systems, the body keeps the score, and some of these other books that are making it more into the mainstream are really starting to address this. Even Gebel Mate's, yeah, good old Bez, and so there's these overlays, and I think for me, like when a client comes to me and they talk about, I've got this psychosomatic thing, I've got some body thing going on, whether it's clenching the jaw, grinding the teeth, migraine, sore neck, lower back pain, whatever it is, I do what I do, and I also say, well, lower back pain can also be because you're sitting at a desk all day. It can also be you may have some other injury in your body. So I think there's a balance here, which I think is what the science is really important for. Like, as an individual really needs to take control of whatever their body is doing. So for me, it's like, cool, come and see me. This could be this, or it could be that. Let's just try one thing. Just like troubleshooting it, like being able to test the same thing a GP would do. Try this, see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll give you something else, or whatever it is. So
let's go in deep for a second. Let's go literal, and I'm going to use me as an example here. You happened to say, maybe it was something beyond us. You said grinding your teeth, and you said migraines, right? I did mention migraines before, but I've been grinding my teeth while I'm asleep for a long time. And I was at a friend's place, and she was saying that when I was sleeping, I was grinding my teeth, and she could hear me like voraciously grinding my teeth. And just over the last 2 or 3 months, it's started to die down now because I've been doing yoga every day and moving in the body, which I can hear feels really good, and I've heard it's really good as well. But she was saying I was grinding my teeth really badly, and I'm aware of it because I can feel my jaw in the morning, and I massage it before I go to bed sometimes as well. So in characterology and in body psychotherapy, is there telltale signs for particular parts of the body that you can address certain issues with, if you're comfortable going into that?
Yeah, totally. So usually I start with the behavior. So what's the reoccurring theme in your life? Or I'll go straight to, like, do you grind your teeth? Do you have neck pain? Can you feel your body, or do you go numb? So with the jaw,
Do you want to do it right now?
Yeah. do a reading on you right now.
Yeah, I can if you want to.
Yeah, no, please. Okay, cool. So like you've mentioned your jaw. So like for me, like I'd be like, okay, cool, bro. Would you be comfortable with me massaging your jaw? So I'd start massaging your jaw, and then like tell you to close your eyes and keep breathing into the pain. And then I would say, okay, I'm just going to turn this pain up. So I start pushing a little bit harder, and then the jaw can be quite sensitive and quite tight. So, and then I'd ask you to open your mouth and make a sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever the sound is, usually it's like some kind of like rage, guttural rage. And then I can go even deeper into the point where like I can see the rage coming out in your eyes, or whatever the pent up emotion is that's coming out of your eyes. So yeah, that's how I would do it. So what else would I'd work on you? So there's two things. One, I can access the hurt and the pain. What it also does is it frees up other chi and prana or gas or kundalini or whatever you want to call the energy in the body. And that needs a container to go to. So normally what I'd do is I'd ground you. So in your body, like I'd make sure that you are lying down. So on your body, the way you move, how you are, I'd put you in the category of someone who, and this is pathology, bro. And like I don't like using it because it's like I don't like using the pathology. So if you can detach, like this is just a diagnosis. Like you aren't this person. There's some traits in you that I'd see that would be categorized in this old German way of using like DSM style pathology. So the way I look at you and your perfection, the way your body moves, I'd say there's a rigid component to you. So you've got like the way you are, you're very smart, the way your face is handled, you're a handsome looking guy. So there's like a part of you that's like you've got like you've got good ratio of like your body is like a good like you're fit, right? So in that the rigidity comes. It's a later stage wounding around like perfectionism and being criticized. So with the rigid, then in that context, there's like a teenage year type criticism that's come up, and there can be like this crushing self-shame that you're not good enough. So what happens is the rigid, like in order to survive, they see this shame here and they rise above the shame. So they're like, nah, you know what, I'm better. I'm going to be the best of the best. So in that you form like an arm ring around your heart and an arm ring around your back. So for on your back, I would start massaging around the back of your heart between your shoulder blades, and then you're also incredibly smart. If I was doing some body work on you, I'd massage your head too, and the base of your neck. So around the base, under the occipital, like under here, I just give it some space. I'd say, Luke, I'll get you to lie down, and I said, take a deep breath. I'm just going to massage your neck, base of your skull, and just work around here, and then here. And I'd say, just let me know if you see any memories or anything. Let me know if anything comes up for you. And if something comes up, I'd stop and say, just tell me more about that. What happened there? Like, what are you still trying to make sense of? Or did that make you anxious? Like, just exploring the emotion and then to be able to just express it. And sometimes with clients, there can be something around, oh, my dad told me this. Something happened. And what was recent? Right. So I had a client recently, and she's a rigid. She has rigid. It's called, in the old speak, it's called a hysterical female. In the German pathology. So very attractive woman, high sexual drive, and in the jaw, there's a lot of tightness in the jaw. So when I was massaging her jaw, she said, "Oh, I remember this time with my mum, and I was doing something. What was she doing? I think she was like dancing or doing something that she felt really free. And then her mum said, like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. And then you look stupid doing that." And she embarrassed her. And in that embarrassment, she didn't want to look. She was like, "Oh my God, I'm embarrassed." And then in not saying to getting angry at her mum, she repressed this image of what she needed to be like in her body. and it just came up in her jaw, in her creativity. She doesn't speak her truth, and so in that, the jaw is usually repressing some kind of truth, like, and it could be anything, and it could be something that's really horrible, like. So rigid. I'm rigid as well, so I've got the rigid traits. Some of the stuff that I think about people is like cruel, and I could be like really cutting to people, and I've used that as a strategy to like either get one-upmanship or criticize, or like internally I'll be like playing these like competition games in my head, and how I can be better than this person, which is a classic rigid thing. For me, my jaw wasn't that bad when I do a lot of jaw work. What was bad was more like the birth trauma type stuff, which is a little bit behind the jaw back here. And like when we've massaged men in like a workshop setting before, there's a it's quite uncanny to witness it when you start using some of these really sensitive pain points. What you see in someone's eyes when they just really go there. So yeah, Luke, like I'd love to do a session with you, bro. Like swing round, man. We'll just do what's going on for you, bro? Let's work on your jaw. Let's work on your neck. Like what's going on there? Yeah.
It's a very, very different approach to let's hang out. Look at your jaw. How's your jaw going?
I just put the sign up out front. There's the sign. I don't know if you've seen the sign.
Doing work or something.
Doing work like emotional release in progress. Everybody is safe. Like because I get women, like I'll reenact events, and I'll have women like screaming at the top of their lungs, to an ex or something, to like just be able to relive that moment and take control of the moment instead of feeling helpless or like a victim. So, and that's guttural, like accessing like a woman's like that territorial sacred rage. Like it shocks. Like yeah, so the sign I have out front is everything's okay, emotional release going on. Like no need to call the police. It's all right. It's under control. But yeah, man, I'd love to have you downstairs in the dojo. Could do some light body work on your jaw.
I'll have to take you up on that offer. So it seems to me, what happens in the body, a lot of the symptoms that show up, people think or believe that it has to do with primarily and only living life, old age and genetical weaknesses and various things like that. And they forget to realize, based on what you're saying and, what the modalities that you teach and the approaches you take, that there's more to it than there is to do with having a doctor look at you and saying, "Oh, you grind your teeth, wear a
mouth
guard to bed or something, or or do this or do that." And it seems like it's changing slowly now. People are offering massages and those kind of things, but for the most part, what this kind of work is firstly, body inside your body. That's where trauma is stored, right? The situations and the things that show up in your body, they aren't there just to annoy you or, like just because you are who you are, whatever. It's because of the experience you've had. And because you've had these experiences, you can then change them by accessing them through the body instead of through the mind. Is that accurate?
It is. So they both work in conjunction. So like I think my modalities like NLP and CBT and DDT and all those other ones that DDT, is some acronym with a D in it. DMT. Joe Rogan. So like, there's every modality stacks. So like every kind of every technique, every therapist that you've been to, like everything kind of comes together in the end. So I think that there's definitely an overlay addressing stuff in the body, and then going to a talking therapist, because sometimes you need that conversation. Sometimes you just need someone to listen to you and like talk it out. So I don't want to. I don't want to poo-poo what we've done in the past. I think whatever this journey is has been required to like, so we don't have people like just assuming straight away like, oh, you're grinding your jaw. Oh, this is because little Timmy took your chocolate away when you were 2 years old, and that's it. You got to deal with that. You haven't dealt with that problem yet. It's like, no, there can be more.
Timmy.
Timmy. Timmy took my chocolate, mummy. So there's layers in that, because there could be something else involved too. Like and then also that we do have a lot of unexplained illnesses out there, and I really love that we are opening the fields up to, hey, what else could there be? Like even like plant medicine and psychedelics, like we're seeing a surge in psychedelics and plant medicines as an adjunct therapy for like other illnesses, especially like PTSD and that kind of stuff. So, and those medicines specifically work with the body. So I don't know if you've seen some really cool videos out there around people taking like plant medicines in a therapeutic setting, particularly with PTSD. And they have this whole process. They're designing more and more therapy. You can get trained in Australia now to run with psychedelics.
Wow.
It's groundbreaking. I'm so excited, bro, because it's gonna like give so much more people freedom, like on another level, and which collectively allows the collective shadow to be more integrated. So we're not like suppressing like all these issues. But in the context of PTSD, like there's like soldiers. There's videos of soldiers who, like in an explosion or some battlefield situation where they have some plant medicines. It's usually psilocybin at the moment, or ketamine and hallucinogenic doses of cannabis. They go to a meditative state. They're journeyed into a meditative state, and then their body activates outside of the mind, and their body just relives the trauma without trying to like survive, and then they just grieve. They just feel whatever's there. It could be crying, it could be rage. It's surreal, but I've got to send you the videos, bro. They're surreal. And then they just have freedom afterwards. It's like their lives are changed.
Just quickly cut in there. So where can people find that video, just for the people listening?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's what's it called?
It's okay. Just send it to me later on.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, bro. Like it would. If anyone's been cynical about like psychedelics in the past and like because they're illegal, they're bad. They really are an amazing therapeutic technology to get access where like talking therapy doesn't work. Like someone with complex PTSD or even pre-PTSD, where like you read a lot of things, like a lot of preppers are considered to have pre-PTSD. So it allows you to integrate the body and just be more present. So yeah, man, I'll get you those links, man. I reckon you'd love it. I'll be like, oh wow, this is something that's here. So I forgot where we were going with that, but that's where it ended up.
No, that's okay. That's okay. That's excellent to know. There's, with all this stuff going on in the world, things are shifting, things are changing, and some for the positive, and maybe, depending on who you are, some for the worse. What is the reason behind that? You mentioned an interesting word. You said karmic cycles, and you said something along the lines of we go through cycles. That's how I interpreted it. Could you expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a philosophical point of view. So, in order to see that whatever my consciousness is, like whoever John is, whatever this part of John that's occupying this body right now, is part of a larger collective of consciousness in other people as well. So, in the karmic cycle of that component, there's karma is a collective thing that we're all working through. So like punishing someone for something karmic, or like you did that, you hurt you dropped a rock on your foot, and that's a karmic thing because you hurt your sister when you were 2 years old. That's rubbish. That concept of karma, I think, is rubbish. What I see karma is like we're understanding more about how to love each other. We're understanding more about how to forgive our parents, or forgive someone that's bullied us, or to be able to come in like to a unity, and also being able to honor your own individual essence. Like I want everybody to be able to honor their own individual essence, whatever that is, and through those karmic cycles, we create. We don't shame or dehumanize the individual. We honor each individual as part of like something larger, like part of the divine, part of a bigger picture. And we're all just expressing ourselves very uniquely in that picture. So karmic cycles wise is whatever our life journey, whatever the patterns are in our life. So for me, like the easiest way for me to address that is through the gene keys. So with the gene keys is a system based on the I Ching, where you can see where if there's a pattern that's been playing out in your life, you can look at one of these keys, the same thing, or a hexagram in the I Ching, the I Ching, and reflect on it, contemplate. An example would be, why do I keep attracting the same people in my life? Like people that either like want to criticize me or judge me or whatever it is. Like what is it in myself that I'm not acknowledging or giving space for? And there's a barrier between that, bro. Like if you're being abused, like physically abused or whatever it is, there's some other dynamic that's involved there. For the majority of the populace that are comfortable, they might have a job or they're doing something that's like they're in a good rhythm, they're in an okay rhythm, but there's still reoccurring themes in their life around like either their relationship with their parents, relationship with food, relationship with community, can be addressed in like these karmic patterns of what's my lesson that I need to learn, like who have I not forgiven, or who do I need to love more, or what part of myself do I need to integrate to give permission to express, or maybe I need to speak to my wants and my needs. Like I miss people. Why can't I just send a message? I miss you. I love you. I want to have a conversation with you.
So so you're saying karmic patterns are, they're a way of just identifying the things that you do and attract over and over again. As an example that you mentioned there, relationships, you might be constantly seeing people who treat you wrong, and part of you wants it, but part of you don't. It's like, why am I attracted to that? And it's the cycle you go through. Is there also a global or across the whole human population karmic cycle?
Yeah.
I know that we weren't always what's that word? Globalized or globalization. We weren't so connected. But is the human race always going through a karmic cycle, do you think?
Yeah, I do. And
if so, which one are we in now?
I think we're in a massive death. Like with COVID, like being like stuck in a house and needing to self-reflect. Like you couldn't run anywhere. Like you couldn't run to the club. You couldn't like go get your hookups. You couldn't like escape. Like you had Netflix, and then once you've watched all of Netflix, now I'm bored. So you're faced with like this existential anxiety, like why am I here? And it's forced people to look at their jobs, like, am I rushing to get back into the job that I hated now that I'm working from home? Like a lot of people love working from home. Like I can just jump on my computer and go to the kitchen or whatever it is. So there's this. I think the karmic cycle where we're entering right now, we're always in some kind of cycle. And depending on what esoteric system you want to have a look at, it can time with astrology. So like Pluto's doing something in the 6th house, I don't know, off the top of my head. Like there's always something that's going on cosmically. And what I see at the moment is I see people coming together. Like there is a pulling apart, but I think in that we're really individuating. And I think that's beautiful. Like people honouring people's individual choice of whatever they want to do, and also teasing apart. Like we've had science really helped us a lot, and then now it's like, well, where's the spiritual component in this? Like, can science give meaning to existence? And then. I think there's more veils lifting. I really think it's just a massive shake-up of like, what do you believe and why? What do you believe this and why? And that's what I'm loving. Yeah.
And is there, you think, an end goal? As in because if there was like, we need to see this side or that side, it kind of expresses the idea that there's something outside of us that is giving us lessons or trying to make us learn something. You need this balance or that balance, or you have too much science, now you need spirituality, or you need this and you need this cycle. Do you believe that there's something outside of us that's trying to make us see things, or is it just purely coincidence?
I don't have a good answer for that. Like I think it's the cosmic joke. I think this is a massive cosmic joke there, and there's if I speak to the relationships that I've been in, I'll pendulum between women that I can't keep away, and then women that are always in my face. So there's this is hilarious. Now I need to what am I not learning here? And I see the same thing with my dad. And I could just be giving meaning to everything, which is why I love technology that removes all the meaning from things. But yeah, I think that I don't know if it's a conscious thing that's giving us lessons, or just we're just attracting it like through whatever the laws of the laws of nature. Like, okay, I'm attracting this lesson of whatever it is to really learn how to walk that line, like walk that middle path of the yin yang. Like, what am I doing? Like, I guess the acknowledging whatever the body is experiencing, and how powerful we are as individuals to create our reality. Whether that's relationship, whether that's whatever we want to do. Like, I think the honoring that we are incredibly powerful and then also incredibly insignificant at the same time, and finding that balance of like, well, why am I here?
Yeah, I feel for a long time, we've been so science heavy. We've been so crossing the T's and dotting the I's and making sure everything has its perfect place. And sometimes, in my mind, I've put together a little theory, which is, they talk about the highway to hell, right? And the highway is wide and expanding. And then you have the narrow path, which not many people walk, right? And I started thinking to myself, and it was partly inspired by Jordan Peterson, who we can touch on as well, because I know you have some thoughts on that as well. He was talking about order and chaos. And, and I started thinking about the narrow path. I'm like, why is the path narrow? Well, obviously, because not many people walk it. And why is the highway wide? Because lots of people go down it. What is on each side of the narrow path? It's order and chaos, right? If you have too much order, you become too rigid. You become too mechanical. You can't be flexible. You can't do this. You can't do that. But if you come too chaotic, then you have no structure, which makes everything chaotic and all over the place. And walking the narrow path is a balance, like walking a beam. You have a beam that you walk along, and you have to, sometimes you veer off to too much order. You might structure a podcast too much, or you might not be structured at all, right? And then it's a constant balancing act of asking yourself the question, where is the balance? Because I hear in Buddhist philosophy that, and you said it before, having balance, having that balance in your life of this and that. But it's like, what does that actually look like? So just as a side note, it's like the order and the chaos of your life, and walking the narrow path with one question perhaps in mind, which is, am I having too much order right now, or am I having too much chaos?
Yeah, it's beautiful, bro. What does it look like? It looks different for each individual. Like what's helped me cope with it is humor. And like for me, like being able to over organizing things and then watching them collapse in a heap and then like just laughing, or like not organizing anything and then having all egg on my face because I didn't spend any time organizing it. So there's like, I think the humor is the cosmic joke in the whole thing, and being able to surrender to how it makes me look. So I think when I'm just doing it for me, like when I'm walking that middle path just for me, like it's so much more peaceful. When I'm wanting to look like I've got it all together, it gets exhausting. So I think I haven't got an answer, because I think each individual has their own unique expression, and some people like the chaos. Like for me, like if I look around my room right now, like if my partner walked in, she'd be like, why have you got all these empty mugs of coffee over here on the bench over here? Or why have you got unfinished artwork in the corner? Or your room's so dusty. And in that, like, I don't mind it. I don't mind that. But then there's other areas of my life which I'm very rigid around. And what are those? That's a good question. I don't even know what those are. So there's other components in me that I need to allow for chaos, so I can offset my rigidity somewhere else. So it's like I actually like I just prefer like that. Oh, okay, my room's in a complete state of chaos, which means I don't need to worry about anything right now. It's fine. And there's other things where usually my business I'm quite rigid. So how I make posts, how I do other things, how I speak, I can be really rigid around. So like my appearance, I can get really rigid around, except for my hair at the moment, which I'm letting that go.
For those that can't see and are listening on audio, we have lockdown hair, as they call it. We've been in lockdown for a good 3 months now. Well, I mean, longer than that, it feels like it. But it's called lockdown locks, they call it.
Lockdown locks. I love that.
Get those lockdown locks going.
That's so funny. I love that. I didn't realize my hair goes so curly. I put a little bit of product in there. Yeah, thanks, bro. Thank you.
You look beautiful.
Ah, Luke. Oh, you shucks. But yeah, and then with Jordan Peterson, like I love JP stuff. I got a lot of love for JP.
You wrote a status, it was about a year ago, I think. I remember reading it briefly about a breakdown of his character. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember there was some stuff you said about him. Did you want to share that?
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but this great book. I haven't read his new book. Yeah,
it's really good. I just showed it was the Beyond Order. Jordan Peterson, for those that can't see it.
Yeah, like I respect the man. Like I really do see. He sees the symptom picture. Like he sees like. And like in human design wise, he's a 5/1, so he's someone who investigates and is here to bring something into the world, and can be accused of being a heretic. Well, he's a bit of a heretic. So heretics usually are troublemakers. Like they go against the status quo. But for him himself, he's someone who's a rigid. So he's got that rigid character structure in him, and he's also got a little bit of a component of the schizoid, which so he can be quite black and white thinking. But then
defining, so schizoid means black and white thinking.
Yeah. As a very general, schizoid is black and white thinking, so the rigid wants like efficiency and is a perfectionist. But then the schizoid can get really attached to the black and white thinking and wants it to be perfect. But in the context of Jordan Peterson. Like I see, like whatever his modalities are, he'd do a great. I think he would love a good hit of psilocybin or DMT. Put him on the Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, he can give him some. But I with JP, like there's whatever he learnt about like the gulags and humankind and humanity. Like you go into the cesspools, like the shadow of humanity. And if you can't see any light there, if you lose hope, if you get lost in that world, like you become the monster. So I think when he went through his massive depression, like his chronic depression, and then went on the barbiturates and his whole health journey, like he really needed to express like that disgust or the rage at humanity of like how we were doing some of the same stuff that we did years ago, and people have written about it, and we're still doing the same stuff again. So I think that's where why I have so much respect for him, because he's done the hero's journey. Like he's gone to the cave, he's done whatever he needed to do to find, he's come back, but then in that he needs to express it not in an articulate way, like in a book, but like raging it out. Like I'd love to see Jordan have a good rage. I'd love to get him downstairs and massage his jaw, get into his back, let it out, Jordan. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about your dad, JP. What happened? What did your mum do to you? Who bullied you as a kid? Come on, get in there. So and
show me that spine.
Show that spine. Where did Timmy take your chocolate? What did Timmy do to your chocolates?
Where's the Tim Tammy took? Don't hide it from me, Jordan.
Don't hide it from me.
Have you cleaned your room, Jordan?
Exactly, and that would be it.
You best be cleaning it.
No more reading from you.
Where's that patriarchy? Don't eat that lobster again, okay?
But I love that, like I love him, and I think he'd do some great body psychotherapy or some psilocybin or something just to get him in his body. Energetically, he's very upward displaced, and I see he's got a pelvic split, so I don't know what his sex life is like, but I get him into some tantra too. I'm like, bro,
what's a pelvic split?
A pelvic split. A pelvic split is where it usually happens. It's part of the over puberty. What can happen is you'll start expressing sexuality. You'll start expressing like either you start as a man, like you start getting erections, start getting pubic hair, and then sometimes your mum. This is where it gets like, this is like the old school. This is like the old like way of viewing sexuality. Freud, and there's some truth in it. With some of the clients that I've treated, like they remember specific moments of either with their same-sex parent or opposite-sex parent, and you express something about your sexuality to your opposite-sex parent, and you get shamed for it, or the opposite-sex parent doesn't know how, if they haven't addressed their own sexuality, they can either shame you for what they are feeling, or they can see something in you that they want to try and protect or hide you from, or just not address. So in the split, the pelvic split, the split is from the pelvis, so the sexuality, from the heart. So what happens, it can be quite a rigid thing as well. So when you get aroused, instead of allowing the kundalini, the chi, the prana, whatever it is, to flow into the heart and being able to have like open-hearted sex with your pelvis, you can just go straight into the head or the throat. So there's like this battle. There's almost like a column of energy that goes from the pelvis to the head, and there's no heart in it. So a lot of like my clients that I say they've got rigid pathology, they're quite sexualized, they're quite sexual human beings, but they really struggle in long-term relationships. They tend to have a lot of attachment injuries around like either avoidance or anxiety, where they can't open their heart in the relationship, especially during physical intimacy. Like they can like be really technically amazing, but then when it comes to opening the heart and like being present with the person, like looking into their eyes and really being slow and like really becoming one in physical intimacy, they can really struggle with. They can want to run away or have an excessive need for reassurance.
Yeah, it all manifests in the body. I mean, for the most part, people hold tension in their body, and it manifests in various ways. Yeah, there's certainly a lot you can tell by a person by how they move and how they talk and how they walk, but often the downside of that is that, you know, if you're a person of how would you say, cynicism, you start to look at people's flaws. When you learn body language, for example, when you're a salesperson, you look for ways you can exploit or ways you can take advantage. How do you remain empathetic? Is it looking at the shadow inside yourself?
That's a great question, bro. I'm really happy you asked that question. Because for me, when I first got these tools, I was super judgmental. And then I couldn't help myself. A part of the exercises during this mentorship was going out and categorizing people, just looking at people. And like, we'd go out in groups and we'd just identify people, and we'd all like kind of compare our results on what we thought was like what the person had. So for me, it's been a journey to understanding and compassion. And I think, and that's what I lead with. So when I'm talking to someone, I can listen from nothing, like not take their body into account, and just say, what do you have to say to me? And when I'm putting more of the therapist hat on, I can look at their body and go, look, I can tell like your caregivers never gave you the space for you to self-express, whatever that was. They always made your anger wrong, or they didn't encourage you sexually, or they didn't encourage you to be artistic, or you were never allowed to express your feelings because there was always a reason given to you to not express your feelings. Like if you were unhappy about food, you can't be unhappy about that food. Little Timmy next door has got chocolates or whatever it is. Like there's some kind of reason.
Good Tim Tams.
Tim Tams. Eat your Tim Tams. You know, there's kids in other countries that would kill for those Tim Tams. You got to eat all your Tim Tams.
Tim Tam Timmy.
Tim Tam Timmy. So there's in answer to your question, I could use those skills malevolently. and take advantage of people. And I guess it's a journey into my own shadow around like allowing the person to be who they are, and just like if someone wants to come to me, they can, because you can. And like in the mentorship program that I did, that was something that could be used. I could use my skill. Like I know what someone who's rigid needs in order to get whatever their shadow wants. A masochist is the same. So I have the toolkit to be able to do that. Just through looking at a person, which is why when I mentioned to my mate, you know what, it was doing the deep learning stuff. I'm like, is it really wise if I tell him this, that you could actually analyze a person's body and be able to predict like what their childhood patterns are, like what their attachment injuries are? So yes, yes, you can, and it's an ongoing thing for me to like, hey, leave the person who they are, and then being able to be transparent and honest in myself. Like, I don't want to take advantage of someone. That's like, you tell me what you want or what's going on for you. I don't need to like manipulate my way into getting what I want. I can just straight up ask, hey, I think you're good looking. Hey, this. Hey, I want this. So yeah, just be honest.
Yeah, and it's often the things you say and the way you show up might have been said by, just being honest and being straight up. There's often a fear of saying something generic and being the same as everyone else, right? It's like this, let's say, for example, you're trying to pick up a chick or like, whatever, you're trying to get a job and you think you need to say something like X, Y, Z. And you think that because you feel like you're not original, because everyone would say the same thing. Like, I think you're attractive. It's like, that's lame, or that's stupid, that's silly. But the truth is, everyone said it, but no one like you has said
exactly.
it. Right? And that's where you are the uncomparable. Like, you are the thing that you think you are not. Let me rephrase that. You are the thing. You are more than what you think you are, because there's no one like you. You're a unique combination of experiences that no one else has had before. So you shouldn't doubt yourself. And I think further to that, I'll be open and vulnerable here for a second. Like, it all started when I was watching YouTube, right? And I saw a shorts video, and it was a video of someone taking a video of one of Jordan Peterson's talks. And Jordan Peterson said in the video, in my whole time practicing as a clinical psychologist, I've never seen someone able to get away with bending reality. And obviously what he then explained was lying. He would see clients, he would see all different types of people, and they would come in and say, oh, this thing's happening in my life, or this, and the more they spoke about it, it went back to something they did a long time ago that led to that bad situation. And I don't know how I got to this, but white lies, for example, that's bending reality. Little lies here and there that is convenient. As Fleetwood Mac says, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. What else is sweet? Sugar's sweet. But it destroys you the more you have it. The more you eat sugar, the more you're destroyed by the consumption of it. So and there's a certain feeling inside, a bandwidth that's taken up from managing that lie. So I went through a bit of a process recently, and I saw that video, and I'm like, where am I being dishonest? And I don't mean dishonest in a complete upfront black and white lie. I mean, half truth, half lie, half this, quarter lie, whatever. And I went to my best friend and also my ex, I guess you could say, and I confessed all the lies I can remember that I told her. I sat down with her and I said, hey, I just want to become completely transparent with you. And I said to her all the lies that I told her, all the things that I did that were untruthful, and continue to try and do that. And even now when I try not to lie, it's like it's automatic in a way. So I have to stop myself and consciously do it. And here's the thing, right? Just to protect myself for a second, when I'm saying a lie, I'm not talking about, writing fraud on my tax and saying there's more than there is. I'm talking about, making yourself seem better than what you are, even slightly. Or conveniently saying something else to avoid a hard conversation. Little things like just wording things a certain way, or saying something's happening when it's not happening, little things like that. So all in all, you can't bend reality. And so the lies you tell other people, this is for everyone listening, the lies you tell other people are the lies you tell yourself. And every lie you tell someone else, you think you're helping yourself, but you're turning reality against you. You're turning time against you. And the more you tell the truth, the more you uncover parts of yourself that you previously avoided. So the moral of the story, don't lie.
I love that. I love that. And when you were speaking, like the word that kept jumping out at me was integrity. Integrity. And like you can restore integrity, like with your ex. If you restored integrity with that, you've actually repaired whatever that karmic timeline is there. Like, you know what? No, there was something that was in all that, And then after you had that conversation, like how did you feel? Like what changed for you after you spoke to that?
What changed for me was I didn't have to hide anymore. Like going back to what you said about saying certain things, or like trying to say certain ways of saying things, or whatever it might have been. I think I said that actually. Anyways, doesn't matter. But there's a heaviness that comes to it and comes with it, I should say. Lying doesn't actually lead to anything but pain in the end. And it's like it's just offsetting future problems with the burden of having to do it in the future anyway. So I felt relieved. And there's still some stuff that I have to say, and I will say, especially after this conversation. But it's a cleanness.
Yeah.
And I went through a job interview process recently for a part-time job whilst I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing. And typically in the past, I think most people do this, but let's just be raw and honest. Like I would exaggerate skills and assets, or exaggerate parts of my achievements to win the interview or win the person over, and it would work. It would always work. And in this process, I was as transparent as I could possibly be. And it was a relieving feeling to know that it was a far better feeling than getting a job and thinking, did I get this job because of the things I said I was, or because of who I am? So it's integrity, and the integrity feels clean. It's high fidelity. It's like eating a nice meal. It tastes a nice healthy meal. It tastes not the best sometimes if you're not a good cook, like leafy greens perhaps. But the next morning after you've had a sleep, it tastes amazing. Whereas Macca's tastes nice at the time, but after that it tastes disgusting.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of that. Yeah, like lying is junk food. Like it's Timmy's Tim Tams, It's like
it's bloody
Timmy, mate. Timmy, he's gonna Timmy. But I love that, bro. And like I hear that, like the overselling of self, like, 'cause I do that too. Like and it's been walking this line of like, well, how do I actually own my worth, and how do I compete in the world of like coaches and therapists and other leaders? Like, how do I sell myself? And do I need to sell myself? Can I just be like? Can I just put myself out there? Like, what can't? Because selling myself gets so exhausting. But then also like not really having a grounded sense of self. Like coming from a background where only academia was I could make a living from. So like my parents have conversations about, John, go to university, do your masters, get an MBA, get all that stuff. That's the only way you can make a living. So for me, creating my own business, it's been like, well, my family support isn't really there. Like they don't. It's not like. So in my worth as a person, like I need to get more qualifications. So developing worth from like my testimonials and like people tell me, John, you're actually pretty good at what you do, and they're like being, oh, am I though? But am I though? So I hear that overselling, and then like when I do that, I feel like such a fraud. Like when I get
Same.
the job or get whatever it is, it's like I feel like I'm an imposter. What am I doing here? And yeah, like and when you were speaking, I was like, bro, how what do you think the world would be like if everyone was just brutally honest?
Um, dude, it'd be the version of utopia that everyone talks about, except without, some temporary pain of hardship of, oh, I'm so offended, but then it'd be perfectly fine and everything would appear to be in order.
Yeah,
I just wonder why humans don't do that. Why don't we do that?
that's a great
Why
question.
why
Mm.
why do we? I get it, right? So what's the antithesis of a lie though? Where does it start from?
Mm. I,
And what part of human nature needs it?
No, no,
Sorry.
no. You're on a great. You want to keep going. Like as I say, yeah. I think it's fear. Just different
Fear of what?
iterations of fear. So, fear of being kicked out of the tribe, fear of failure, fear of being less than. I see a lot of it's just primal, like a primal component of not being accepted or not being loved. Like why would we need to talk? Why would we? Where does it come from? Like an economy. It's come from an economy of being able to be of value. So if you're not of value, then you're no use to the tribe. So how do you create value for yourself? You either talk yourself up, or you get a lot of abilities, or you become irreplaceable. But when there's a point of when there's the market is saturated, then you really need to make a point of difference to make yourself identify yourself as valuable. So I think people are just afraid of being worthless, and then there's fear that comes from that. Like I'm not useful. Like, what am I even doing here? Yeah.
I wonder then, the unique commodity is realness. And the ironic thing is that if you are who you are and you show up as you are, then how can anyone compete with you? How can anyone contend with someone that's uncontendable? It's not possible, right? And that's why the question of why do we do this as humans is even more puzzling for me. I'd like to understand that more and more. I think there is a few books out there that talk about the psychology of lying and what the rewards are. And but here's the thing, right? It's so culturally accepted as well that a white lie is actually something commendable. You tell someone that you casually lied to someone to avoid a pain they couldn't handle, then you're commended for it. Oh, that was the right thing to do, And I think there's a big difference between white lies and being tactful and honest at the same time. You know what I think it is? I think I just figured it out, John. I think it's, so there's a law of least resistance in human nature, right? In that law of least resistance, the key outcome is to avoid effort and avoid expenditure of energy. It is far more convenient and far more easier to lie than to tell the truth because it requires more energy.
The truth requires effort. The truth requires, yeah, right. Mm. And yeah, interesting when you mention that. Like when I'm thinking, like the moments when I've lied, it's either like get away from a conversation, or like I don't want to deal with this right now. Instead of just owning like the what so, like I need to tell you something. I don't want to have to deal with the aftermath, so I'm just going to tell you and just walk away. Like I don't want to have this conversation right now. Or whatever it is. Like I think you're full of crap. I think what you just said was rubbish, and just walk away. And like I won't have to deal with unpacking. Why? It's like that's it. I've said it. I'm walking. Mic drop. Bomb. Done. Mm.
Well, to add to that quickly, you said before, and I have to think of this for a moment. You said people use something, a lie, right, in this example, to hide from self-esteem issues. Now, let me rephrase it. Let me unpack that for a second, right? So when you're traumatized as a child or as a kid, you go through a process of making a story up in your mind to protect yourself from the truth of possibly that you're not good enough. And you lie to yourself and tell yourself that you are not the thing that you think you are, and that protects you. Right? And yeah, so it's this, so it's, and to extend that to what you also said as well, which was awesome, we're hiding from ego death. So the question might be instead, why are we running away from an ego death? And if we never lied to ourselves, if we never had trauma, would we lie anyway? Because if we see the positive results of, I can lie to myself and tell myself that I'm X, and I can feel better for it, like, oh, my mum just rejected me, that's because all women are bad, all women are bad, or this or that. It's far more convenient to believe a lie than it is to believe the truth. But if you believe the truth, it's far more convenient for your life long term. So it's just short-term thinking.
I love that, bro. And I want to bring it back to characterology and the lying. So, like with the rigid, like the rigid has real issues with authenticity, and there's a denial of whatever the real self is. So there can be a lack of spontaneity in the rigid, because they're like, well, how do I behave? What's the correct way to behave right now? And in that you can tell lies, because I don't know who my real self is, because of I needed to adopt a defense in order to fit in with my family, my culture, whatever it is. So I don't really know who my self is. So with the rigid, and I've had to go through this, so I've done Tantra and all the stuff that I've done, is to understand what is it that I really want? Because if you don't know what you want, there's like a maintaining of an identity of what you think that you want. So the journey to authenticity, which I think what you've done perfectly there by just speaking to, acknowledging and reflecting on where you've lied, or tell white lies, or whatever it is, or been inauthentic, and then sat down and had that conversation, just given it air, you're discovering whatever this true version of you is, which I think is it's the journey to the self. It's self-healing. It's totally. And then somatically, when someone receives you and doesn't condemn you for lying, it allows your central nervous system to reset. I was like, hey, you know what? That lie actually wasn't that bad. Telling it wasn't that bad, and recounting it, recalling it, wasn't that bad either. So thank you, whoever it was. Thank you for listening to me about my lie and allowing me to restore integrity around me making up something. One of the personal development courses that I just finished, integrity is a huge thing. There's actually a really cool PDF on it. So that without integrity, everything just falls apart. We see that in all realms of healing. When someone if a healer's lying about whatever they're proclaiming, or a politician, or anyone in areas of authority, whenever they lie or have a lapse of integrity, then after a while, when integrity gets destroyed, then you need to restore trust. So now how do you restore trust? Through transparency and honesty. So it's whatever, however ugly the truth is, you just got to say it.
Yeah. Even doing this podcast, there's a feeling of, what's the advisable tip that we can leave behind for people? But there's value in just speaking and talking and contributing to a conversation. If anything I've learned from this conversation, it's I came into this with a lot of structure, because there was a lot of chaos before in how I was doing this. I was like, you know what, just figure it out, whatever happens. Then I had, I took on the identity of someone else doing a podcast, Tim Ferriss particularly, and how he does it. I'm like, maybe I should do it like him. And, he's very methodical with the questions, very everything's planned out, it seems like. And perhaps that's just, the way he does it. And it's not anything to do with him being rigid. It's just who he is. But I, in the attempt to do this podcast, I'm like, it needs to be a certain structure, a certain way. And And inside of me, when I'm like going to ask the questions, like, well, what's the extractable tip that people can get from this, you know? And again, it's that narrow path of walking those two fine lines. And yeah, I didn't know where that fit into the whole thing, but you know, it's beyond order. You know, 12 more rules for life.
I love it, bro. I love how you run this. Like, I love it. Like, it felt flowy to me. It was like, we just danced, bro. I love it. It's great.
I had the intention before coming on this that it would be flow, you know, and yeah, it doesn't matter what happens in it. It's like, it has to be enjoyable. It can't be something you're doing for someone else, or it can't be, you know, something you're trying to do because someone else thinks you should do it, or, you know, what would everyone else like, or how does someone else do it? And this again goes back to that analogy of like between order and chaos. You know, you need to have a bit of chaos or a bit of order sometimes, and it depends on who you're speaking to and the context. And yeah, like Bruce Lee said, be like water. And I think a life without lying, a life that's authentic, a life that's aligned, and it's on the narrow path but balanced between those two things, is being like water. So rigidity goes away when you accept the parts of you that you don't want to accept, which means facing the lies that you've been telling yourself to other people and the whole world.
I love that. I love it. And in that, like, I just want to contribute just finally there, like looking for the vanity metrics of like the results. Like for me, like I'll make something and I'll copy someone else, and then like I won't get the vanity metrics of the likes or the shares or whatever it is, and then I'm like, I'm going to do it for me. Like, what do I feel the most in? Like, where do I love the chaos, and where do I love the rigidity? And like being able to honor, like, I'm not going to make it look like anything else other than like what it want for me. And I think in that, like, I just attract whatever the tribe is that really likes that, you know, like, cool. Like, I'm just going to be me as much as I can be me. I'm going to attract all the people that like that version of me, which is the most authentic me that I can have.
Beautiful, man. That'd be a good place to end, but I do have a few rapid fire questions. And then we'll wrap up. I've got some written down here. So,
Timmy.
Timmy with the Tim Tam. All right, so here's the questions, right? What is one of the biggest challenges we are facing as a civilization?
Transparency.
Boom, love it. And, well, I'm just going to say what do you think the solution is, but obviously transparency. Okay, if you could leave behind a toolbox for future generations, what would you have in it? And as an example, right, you might leave a certain book in there. You might leave a practice. You might leave a quote. It can be a combination of things. What would be a toolbox that you would leave behind if you weren't here?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. What would I leave behind? I'd leave behind Wilhelm Reich's Characterology. It'd be the book. And I'd leave behind the Gene Keys, the 64 ways, the Gene Keys 64 ways. Those would be the two things I'd leave behind. And I also wanted to add something practical in there because I want to like have something like a bag of seeds or something. But I'm like,
with some parsley or
some Tim Tams in like a Twinkie wrapper or something. Yeah, I think those two things. I think like Characterology and Gene Keys and there's one more thing. Yeah, a body work manual, just like how to work your body, like whatever that looks like. Yeah, and throw my book in there too, you know, 'cause I'm not biased by that.
It's a very large toolbox.
It's a big one.
It's a big toolbox. Is it a metal toolbox or a wood one?
That's a good question too. Oh no.
You design the toolbox as well.
Design a toolbox. Then there's a nostalgic part of me that wants to, it's got to be wood and like a really nice wooden toolbox. Well, that's not going to really last. Yeah. Let's make it a nice
Tasmanian oak.
Chocolate.
With epoch resin. It's made of tin. Bit of Tim Tam chocolate.
What's the next question?
That's all. That's all the questions, man.
Love it.
Anything else you like to add?
What do I love it? What do I love to add? Bro, I love what you've done here. I love what you've created. I love the iterations of like when the first one we did this, and then this time. And I love watching you on your journey, bro, of like self-discovery. And like every time we have a conversation, it's like, I've discovered a lot about myself right now. I'm going to bring this into the world. I just love that, bro. Like it's an inspiration to see just people wanting to understand and have that humility to go, what else is out there? What else is going on? And who am I going to talk to? And just bringing stuff that you find passionate into the world in your own way. I love that, bro. I have so much respect for your creation and you're creating your own leadership, like legacy, which I have a huge admiration for. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's as a kid, I was always very curious and I couldn't stop asking questions, and I never have.
Don't stop. Never stop.
I won't, man. I won't ever stop. Thank you, beautiful people, for listening to another episode of the Getting Mental podcast. If you liked this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share it with your friends and family. If you would like to see more of the Getting Mental podcast, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're on every social media platform. You can find us at Getting Mental Podcast. Until next time.